So we'll go ahead and get started here. We've got about 25 or 30 minutes, so it'll be pretty fast paced. But if everybody could, I guess, start by putting your screens on mute. And then if you have a question, I'll check the chat box at the end, and I'll also allow a couple of minutes at the end for Q&A. It'll quite a bit of content on building your game plan for winning the war on COVID. And it may feel like that you're drinking from a fire hose, but we'll go ahead and get through the content and then answer any questions and cover any comments in the chat box at the end of our time together. So welcome to Playbook for Success, with building your game plan for winning the war on COVID-19. I'm Patrick Frazier. I'm an executive coach since 2005, carry certifications through multiple organizations, including Total Quality Improvement, Trusted Advisors Network, Gravitas Impact. Previous to that, some great experience with Citigroup, American Airlines, United, and TWA. I won't get into all of that, but I just keep you, ask that you keep in mind a coach is somebody that tells you what you don't want to hear, who has you see what you don't want to see so you can be who you've always known you could be. Great quote from Tom Landry. It's, as a coach, that's my role in this is to ask those questions to bring about clarity to help you get the desired outcomes. So the topic of the day is, of course, COVID-19. I always like to start my coaching sessions, workshops, and the like with good news. As of this morning, more than 300,000 people have actually recovered from the virus worldwide. WHO officials tell us that there's now over 25 coronavirus vaccines in development. Air pollution continues to decline in cities with high rates of quarantine. We're hearing that athletes and sport teams are pledging to pay the wages of arena employees during the shutdown. School districts across the county, although they're closed, they're still open for serving meals to kids and families. Communities and countries are opening up new lanes of free entertainment. And it seems like no matter where you look, people are helping one another. And we're really seeing humanity do some pretty cool things right now. I'm reminded of a quote that we've probably all heard from Fred Rogers. When I was a boy, I would see scary things in the news, and my mother would say, look for the helpers. You'll always find people that are helping. And I think that during this time of crisis, you're seeing people around the globe helping one another. So you are here. Kind of a, you can see I spared no expense for creating a flashy graphic that kind of describes our current situation, actually a recovery curve. There's always a decline, and there's a bottom out, and there's an ascent. We are actually still in the decline, although we'd like to think that we're at the bottom or soon to be ascending. We're likely still in the descent phase. And the thing that I point out in this particular graphic is an economic downturn is almost always twice as deep as you think it is. We tend to be optimists. We think that it's not going to be quite as deep or last quite as long, but history would show it's almost always twice or three times as deep as we think. On the other hand, recovery is almost always twice as long as we think. There are certain models that say we could be on a 45-degree incline, a quick incline. There are other models that say it's more like a 30 or 15-degree incline over a 12 to 18 month period. I show this graphic only for us to say, what's our next move and what's our game plan. So today, what I wanted to do is talk to you about a tactical game plan for winning the war on COVID. Actually, it's a 10-point game plan, but today we'll only have time to go through a couple of these. And then in future dates, we can kind of go through some of the ones that I skip over today. But we're going to talk about protecting your staff, taking a look at assessing the field, looking at what's the battlefield look like. How do we get somebody accountable? Not just responsible, we can all be responsible, but who would be accountable? We'll look at a game plan that has a good defense, a good offense, and good special teams. We'll develop an action plan, things that we can take away, that we can actually begin to act on to make a difference. We'll talk about how great game plans communicate. It's not possible during these times to over communicate. We just need to make sure a message gets to the depth of the organization. Talk about our role as a leader, just stepping into the leadership role. People need strong, confident leaders during a time of crisis. Looking inward and making sure our oxygen mask is on first. Faith, family, friends, fitness, finance, and you got to have fun too. And then, of course, using a coach as accountability. So let's dive into it. We need to protect your staff. First and foremost, everybody matters. So implement the World Health Organization workplace guidelines in the office. Things like how do we work remotely? What's the proper equipment? What's the training? What's relevant with regards to social distancing? What are the travel restrictions? How do we communicate when we're separate? What's the accountability? What are the measures and the metrics? And what are the communication rhythms for holding people accountable during this phase of the crisis? How do we plan for continuity and succession? Do we have red teams and B teams, A teams and B teams that can succeed one another if one team falls away? You know, a funny quote is we often hear around the workplace is, work would be great if it weren't for the people. But the reality is people are essential to our success, essential to our ability to sustain, essential for our ability to succeed. And if we're going to win this war, we've got to stick together. We're better together, is what we might say. Secondly, we want to kind of assess the impact, right? What's the battlefield look like? Develop a cash flow forecast. What does your business look like with a 15% reduction in top line revenue? What do you have to do in order to break even if your revenue drops by 15%? Many of us are seeing that 15 to 30% already. What does your business look like at a 30% drop off in top revenue? How do you break even? What cuts do you need to make? What changes need to be put into place? And then a third forecast of a 45% reduction in sales. What does the recovery curve look like for your industry? What does it look like for your geography? What does it look like for your business? What does it look like for your competitors in the competitive landscape? It's the time now really to assess what does that battlefield look like and face the brutal facts. Take a look at your balance sheet for liquidity, right? Cash is the most important issue in our businesses right now. Some would say we need to hoard cash, at least temporarily, so that we remain liquid, so that we get through this. Make sure you understand your cash flow and the reserves that you have. Know your cash balances. Know what's in your checking. Know what's in your savings. Know your line of credit availability. Build a cash projection model. Understand the ins and outs of your business like you've never understood it before. It's said that great leaders understand their cash flow. Know where it's coming from. And just as an added note, invest now in a good financial planner, good financial support, somebody to really help you understand the ins and outs of your business. There's several great resources out there. Greg Crabtree and Simple Numbers, Straight Talk, Big Profits is a great primer for such a time as this. So kind of move to point number 4 is develop a defense strategy. Before I dive into this, I would say kind of bonus material, I guess, is make sure that you have somebody on your team that's accountable for gathering, tracking, and helping employees get the financial need that's available, right? Through the banks, through the government. Set up a COVID-19 expense line so that you can track every detail. So let's dive into our defense strategy. The key here is we want to aggressively manage our cash daily. We want to proactively manage our accounts receivable, money that's owed to us. We've already provided a product or service. It's time to collect, call and ask for payments, right? Get it into our bank account and keep it longer. Dig into the recurring expenses that you have. Our recurring expenses tend to creep in during good times, right? Look through them, and everything from unused subscriptions, office maintenance, laundry services, free bottled water, office supplies. You'll be amazed what you find. There's actually people in your organization that are very frugal people that are just naturally good at this. Now it's their time to shine. Help them root out any of the recurring unnecessary expenses. Move from auto payments, those things that automatically draw against your credit or draw out of your bank account, and set them as manual. You initiate the payment instead of it being automatically drawn. Review all non-essential or discretionary spending and eliminate those things that you can absolutely live without. Once again, we want to manage our cash daily. Stretch the terms with your suppliers. You know, this is always a controversial one because we're afraid if we stretch the terms with our suppliers, they may cut us off. They won't. If you advise them that this is a temporary measure, it's something to help us all get through, we will return to standard terms when the storm passes over. Some suppliers will grumble, but what we're finding is they generally will help us out because they all know we're all in the same ecosystem and we're better together. So inventory, as part of your defense strategy, remember that inventory on shelf is like cash on the shelf. Lighten your inventory load. Restock in smaller quantities. Reset your inventory min and max levels. Remember, if you're doing business at a lower level, right, you may be missing the opportunity to crank down or lower your inventory costs, or at least the dollars tied up in inventory. People. It's never any fun to cut or RIF or reduction in force, but it's a time now to cut the ones that are in foul trouble, right? Those people that have attendance issues or behavior or performance issues, that may be a time now to cut them, right? Resist cutting the hard to hire or train core competency team, right? Don't cut all the way through the bone, is what we like to say. So make sure that we keep those ones that have a core competency that allow us to provide a unique product or service to our customers. Then moving on to offense, right? Take a look at innovating or pivoting or reinventing ourselves. Now's the time for us to create. Exploit our core competencies. What are the strengths? What are the things that were really good? What are the systems that we put together that create a unique product or service? change our mindset and encourage all those around us to look at things like, what will it be? And don't fixate on what we used to be or what we used to have. Focus now on what will we be. Target those essential critical industry workers. You know, there's 16 industries that are deemed critical. About 75 to 80% of businesses in the Sweet 16 are still open for business. And many of them are hiring and can't get enough laborers, right? So find a way to provide your product or service to one of the Sweet 16. Maintain relationships with your banker, right? What outside cash resources might be available? These are unprecedented times. Simon Sinek has a great short video, one of my favorite authors. Do a Google on Unprecedented Times by Sinek. Watch the short video. So as you think about offense, I've always kind of been a guy that likes to put more points on the board. It's hard for me to play defense, but always looking for those ways to stretch and grow and put more points on the board. Now is a really good time to find great talent. We read in the news that over 10 million people in the United States applied for unemployment in the last 2 weeks. That's a pretty grave statistic, but an optimist would say there's a lot of great talent out there in the market right now. You hear on the news of all the businesses that are shutting down, but once again, there are 16 industries and many businesses that are thriving. So if you think about the businesses that are thriving, I always say, well, it might as well be me, one of those that are thriving. There's financial assistance through the government. Why not have the government fund that next great idea that you have, right? Through the Small Business Association. It's a great time for planning. It's an opportunity. It's a great time for training and skills upgrades. So there's a lot of opportunity in this season that we may never see again. So number 8 is lead, right? And now it's a time to focus on leadership, not consensus. We want to make sure that we have processes that allow us to get feedback from all of our people so they stay connected, they stay engaged. We want to make sure that people see us as leaders that are compassionate, a voice of calmness and stability, trust. We have to be the purveyors of hope. We have to inspire those for hope and to hang on for a better future. I might also say that from a leader's perspective, the owner decide who gets paid and when. And that's kind of from one of our defensive postures, right? We talked about cash flow, but keep in mind the owner decides who gets paid and when. It's a time for leaders to stand up and lead. Number 9 is don't forget to put your oxygen mask on first. You got to look inward. As I mentioned earlier, faith, family, friends, fitness, and finances, right? The key here is to build a plan, to check in. How's your oxygen mask? As they say in the airlines, when you board a flight, you put your mask on first, because if you're not able, then you're not able to help those around you. We want to make sure that our leaders, our teams, are at fighting weight when we get through this. We will get through this. Will you be ready? So make sure that you check your oxygen mask on a daily or weekly basis. And then number 10 is use a coach. You know, coaches have trained all their life for this. Lean on them. Help them. Call upon their help to help you make business decisions. Make decisions based off data and logic and not emotions. Validate your thoughts, your ideas, your strategies, your approach, the solutions. They say two heads are better than one. Well, now's the time to prove that. Get another head in the game so that you have greater clarity on what the problem is, a broader range of possible solutions, and from a broad range of possible solutions, you can pick the best solution for you and your company. Use your coach to help you hold accountable. Accountability. Did you do what you say you were going to do? When you said you were going to do it? And what were the outcomes and the results? Bottom line is you'll increase the chance of survival, success, and growth with a coach or with a mentor, advisor, or counselor. One of the things that we put together just to help people is a 10-point game plan for winning the war on COVID. We've covered 4 or 5 of them today. But what's your game plan? Do you have a game plan that allows you to decide what you need to do today, what needs to happen this week, this month, and in the next 90 days? Build your game plan for winning the war on COVID. As we kind of wrap down, I wanted to kind of draw this together and reflect. Think about, how will this crisis make me better? How will it make your organization better? Will you better be equipped to better serve your customers? How will the crisis help us help others? What actions will we take today to improve our situation? And what will be better or different next week? I was reminded of a client, a good friend, that said, it had been a tough week Friday, he was telling me. And he had, Friday afternoon, he got his kids to bed, and he was actually out on his front porch and just reflecting. And initially his thoughts were negative because of all that had gone on in the previous week. But then he started to think about what had changed. And he had realized that there were 2 or 3 really great opportunities right in front of him. And he was inspired that he would be able to develop a new service and meet a client need that they had only been thinking or dreaming about a month prior. So what he did was basically over the weekend develop a business plan to develop a new product and service to meet a customer need that was out there that he didn't have the currents to do. Now there was inspiration that came perhaps from desperation, but it all came because he spent a moment reflecting. I'd encourage each of you just to spend a moment reflecting. How will we be better in the days ahead? So hopefully you'll be able to find one thing from today in the last 25 minutes or so of things that if you could apply to your business, it would have a positive impact on your future success. I'd encourage you to write it down and take action. So having a coach, some of the things that you might want to consider: strengthening your resilience, as we talked about your oxygen mask first. We also talked about how a coach might be able to improve your cash flow and reserves, or repositioning your strategy, innovating a new line of products or services, or how about streamlining your supply chain, increasing your customer retention, or accelerating payment, or how about implementing a change management process? Things are changing quite rapidly these days. Do the processes you have allow you to change and keep up? Or fortifying your bench by selecting better, faster, leaner, meaner, stronger players to help you execute your strategy. So many ways a coach can help, but how can we help you? So at this, if you want to go ahead and turn your mic off or mic on and just take questions, and I'll do my best to answer, and we'll take it from there. Any questions? Is it crickets or is everybody talking into a muted microphone?
Patrick, this is Christy. No questions, but really appreciate you putting this on. It's nice to have some of these resources.
Great. Thank you, Christy. So if you found this interesting, I will be going through all 10 points for a similar webinar for the Chamber of Commerce a week from today. It will be a 60 to 75-minute version of this. We'll have a little more time to dive deeper into some of the 10 points. So if you're interested in that, shoot me an email or a text, and I'll get you the registration info. Also, late last night, I did send out a COVID-19 checklist. So an opportunity for you to kind of assess where you're at and what areas you might need to address going forward. It's a free resource available to anyone, and you'll be able to kind of see some of the things that you might want to address as you build your game plan. I am offering a free 45-minute coaching session to any new clients, or actually just anyone that's on the call today. If there's any way that I can help, I'm not looking to monetize a crisis. I'm just looking to help in any way that I can. If you just text Meet Coach at 31996, you'll have access to my calendar, and we'll set up a time where we can kind of go through anything specific that you might be facing in the crisis that we're amidst today. So thank you very much. And if there's no further questions, I'll sign off. Again, this is Pat Frazier from the Coaching Authority. Have a great day.